Hi, this is Jen Rubin from The Contrarian. I'm delighted to have with us two experts, both former federal employees. Julie Zebrak was at the Justice Department and dealt with hiring and firing, a timely issue. And of course, our viewers and our readers are familiar with Mimi Rocah, who also was a federal prosecutor and has just left her post after completing her term as district attorney of Westchester County. We come to you intending to talk about the firings at the Justice Department, but lo and behold, overnight, we see another shocking development. The president or his emissaries have essentially frozen all federal funds, all federal aid. That's aid going to kids in Africa who are expecting funding to get life-saving vaccines. That's researchers in the United States who are trying to complete or begin medical trials. And potentially that's all the monies that go to state and federal government. This is violative of the law and of the Constitution. Mimi, tell us a little bit about something called the Impound Act of 1978 and the Constitution and why this is a bad thing.
So I think that what people need to understand is, we talk about this very lofty concept of separation of powers, Congress, the executive branch. And what is happening here with things like his action with respect to freezing funds is Trump, the president, is acting as if he is all of the branches. This was money that was authorized by Congress. And yes, the president is elected and elections have consequences, but so were the people in Congress. And there can be a time when there's time for new budgets and they can debate, and argue over how much money should be in each of these programs. But right now, this is what has been authorized. And the president doesn't get to just unilaterally decide. And I don't mean he doesn't get to. I mean, it's not just that it's illegal. It's just not how our democracy works. And, it has severe consequences for people who need these funds and rely on them for survival, frankly.
Yes. Julie, let's turn now to the issue of the firings and the announcement of an investigation at the Justice Department. What has the Trump regime done in terms of firing people? And can they do this? Is this legal?
Right. So thanks, Jen, for having me on. What it's important to understand is, we've heard about this during the Trump years, is that there are both political appointees and there are career employees. And there are people like Jack Smith who are special counsel. It's a special role. But political appointees come and go, and whoever is the president has the authority and the perfect right to move them around, fire them, and that sort of thing. Career employees, however, are the people that do the day-to-day business of running the government, and career employees are in the Justice Department, they're at NIH, they're at any agency across the country is filled largely with career employees. And what career employees get is certain due process rights ordinarily, that they have the right to be told if their disciplinary action is being taken against them, if they're going to be suspended without pay, if they are going to be demoted in their role. But certainly, if they're going to be terminated, they have the right to both 30 days notice and the right of the proposed termination. And then they have the right to have an attorney to help them. Well, they can obtain an attorney, and they have the right to reply to that proposed termination. They also have appeal rights after that. That is the normal situation. And the reason, just to point out why that exists, is so that the day-to-day business of the US government, of the parts of it that keep us safe, that keep the science going, developing vaccines, all that, so that those workers, those employees at every level, whether an attorney or a cafeteria worker, are free to do their jobs without worrying about reprisal or retaliation, depending on who's in the executive branch. And so the very reason we have civil service protections for federal employees, and the idea they get notice, they get to respond before something like a termination happened, is so that people who work in the government don't fear retribution. And so, like so much of what the president and his team are doing, this action yesterday to fire career employees who were on Jack Smith's team, these are not Biden appointees. These are career employees who had been pulled in from across the Department of Justice to work in a non-political way on the cases against the president. They've now been told that they are not supportive of the president and they can no longer work there. It is a huge violation of their rights. It is illegal. And I am certain that they are lawyered up now if they hadn't been before.
Mimi, this is what we talk about when we talk about the weaponization or the politicization of the Justice Department. Why is this so dangerous in the larger scheme of things?
It's hard to overstate how bad this is. And I don't believe that everything can be a 5-alarm fire, but this really shook me. As Julie laid out, there are these protections and they're there for a reason. And what this creates now is an atmosphere that we feared was coming. I mean, it's not totally surprising, but an atmosphere where day-to-day career prosecutors, so the people who go to court every day, who sit at their computer and write briefs and do research and interview witnesses and gather evidence and do what lawyers are supposed to do, doing their job, they are now afraid to do their job because people were fired for doing their job. I mean, they didn't even try to come up with some other reason. They were told, you are being, in so many words, you are being fired because you worked on a case that investigated the president or charged the president, this person. There was nothing wrong with them doing that at the time. They could take issue, as they have, Trump and his allies, with Jack Smith, with the appointees, with the decision to bring a case. But these people were rotated onto this case. I'm not saying against their will. I mean, when I was a federal prosecutor, you worked on what case was given to you. And if you thought there was enough evidence, you brought that to your supervisor. If you didn't think there was enough evidence, you told that to your supervisor. But ultimately, it was people above you making that decision. And this atmosphere now of fear that if you do your job, you could be fired is just, it will immobilize the Department of Justice. And that is so dangerous for all of us, everybody, Republican, Democrat, no matter who, because the kinds of cases they do, I mean, everybody's going to be afraid to sneeze, to breathe, to do anything. I mean, I cannot imagine what the atmosphere is there right now. And I think they wanted to create that atmosphere. Yes. Right? It's all about loyalty, but that is not an atmosphere in which lawyers can properly do their job. And the last thing that just needs to be said, which Julie, I think said, but I just want to emphasize, nobody in the Department of Justice is there to enact the president's agenda, as the letter firing them said. It's literally the opposite of that. They are there to follow the facts, follow the law. And I know all of this sounds naive, But I think we just have to keep reminding people of how it is supposed to be and how out of the norm this is. So I hope that sums that up a little bit for you.
Absolutely. Go
I
ahead,
was going to add, Jen, just, to put a little more color on this. These lawyers, when you're fired, you lose obviously your salary, you lose your benefits. They may have been putting money into the thrift savings plan, which is like the 401k plan. This isn't just, you're fired like a game show. This impacts
people's
their
lives.
lives. And
Yes.
what that means is that everybody else at DOJ who are in these prosecution roles are now, justified in worrying, am I going to lose my job? This is very different than the private sector. It's not supposed to be this way.
Right. Julie, let me wrap up on this note. Trump also announced that he's going to investigate Jack Smith and investigate the investigation of him. Now, we have special counsels and they get appointed to do things. Is this appropriate? Is this legal? Or is this just another one of Trump's efforts at retribution and revenge?
I think this is just another effort to send the message, don't come after me or I'm coming after you. So I will cut your pay, I'll cut your benefits, and now I'm going to look into everything you've ever done. And I think that it's, again, meant to quash anybody at the federal government level looking into him or questioning his actions, the actions of his loyalists or anything else, because the message is we're coming after you, not just your personal life, your professional life, and you should be afraid. That's the message.
Well, this has been highly enlightening and frightening, which it should be. And I would add that on top of all this, we had the massacre last Friday, the firing en masse of the inspectors general. And as we have talked about, these are independent voices, nonpartisan people who are there to make sure the rules are followed, to make sure there's not corruption, to make sure that when something goes wrong in a department, in a division, in an agency, that it gets corrected. So what we have seen, just to keep track, is the freezing of funds, the removal of the watchdogs, and now an effort to grossly intimidate and politicize the Justice Department. And oh, by the way, we've also seen a freeze on critical communications, at least from some agencies like the National Institutes of Health. So we really are in five-alarm fire territory. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Mimi. I'm sure, unfortunately, we will have you back as we follow the story. So thank you all for coming. See you soon.
Thanks, Ben.
Bye-bye.